Hi everyone, my name is Abdul Rehman and I'm a neuroscientist. And today I'm accompanied with a Jungian depth psychotherapist, Eva Rider, and she is a very expert in dream analysis and dream work. So thank you, Eva, for joining me today on such an important topic.
Thank you, Abdul, for having me.
Thank you. So, Eva, could you enlighten us what dreams are and how they are important for us? I mean, how would you just start with the dreams?
Okay. Well, because I come from a Jungian standpoint, it is a much more expansive than perhaps a Freudian view, which was more about what we repress. But in Jung's terms, psyche, which is the whole psyche, is a self-regulating system and is always trying to find balance. So here's a quote by Jung, which many people are familiar with, is that as far as we can discern, the sole purpose of existence is to kindle the light in the darkness of mere being. So because dreams are coming out of the unconscious, they're in a sense, there's, I think of it as there being a dream messenger who is trying to give us another perspective of what is not in our consciousness, that is coming out of our unconscious so that we can rebalance. So oftentimes when we are dreaming, what the dream means is not what we necessarily think it is, because dreams speak in a language of metaphor and symbol and image. So one of the questions I would ask is, why then would people often would ask, why don't the dreams say what they mean? Why do they speak in a language that is so difficult to understand? So here back again, because dreams speak very much in the language of poetry, Jung believed that they come from an ancient and archaic language of the psyche that is common in all cultures, that we may have evolved out of. And, for instance, cave paintings, that was before we had language. So it may be, so it may be the dreams are using a language that is gleaned from memory fragments of the day, the life of the dreamer, the body, or even the cellular memory and the ancient memory of the collective, or what Jung called the archetypal realms, which is the collective.
So that means it's just not. So that means it's just not restricted to the currently ongoing conscious life. It can be all the stuck memories from the past that can be projected through the dreams.
Yes, it can be from the past, it can be from the present, and it can be from the future, because oftentimes dreams are pointing forward. And then, just to be specific, there are personal dreams that come out of the personal unconscious, what you're speaking to, that might be my personal life that I'm trying to understand or I'm grappling with. But there are also sometimes, especially nowadays, in these days of coronavirus, for instance, that people are having dreams that are coming out of the collective, that are coming out that in a way that are universal to all of us. In a way, the collective dreams are connecting us to something much larger, where you were talking about a mythical level or an archetypal level, universal. So just a little bit more is that, the instinct and archetype Jung spoke of are kind of the one connect in the psyche. The energy patterns come from the body, so the dreams also come from the body, and they come from the spirit. And they're mediated by our sense of self, or the witness, what we call the ego. So ultimately, the psyche means soul. So really, the dreams are teaching our soul how to, are teaching the ego and the soul to connect, you could say. It's a dialectic. So one thing that is important, I think, and I think of when I think of dialectic, which might make sense to you, is that when I don't write my dreams down, I mean, this is going to be the practical application of it. If I'm not paying attention to my dreams, then it's like, as the Talmud says, it's an unopened book. You're reading an unopened letter. You've received a letter, you haven't opened it. But if you are actually inviting the dreams, And I'll give you a few ideas how to do that. If you're inviting the dreams in, then you're opening a dialogue and a relationship between the unconscious and your conscious self. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the prime perspective of dreams, I believe. So linking the conscious and the unconscious life. So are the dreams always in a symbolic way, or they can be like if someone comes in a dream, so any of the figure personality, so would they always be in a symbolic form, or sometimes do those literal figures and personalities mean something in the dream?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's a very multidimensional question. I think that the way we begin in Jungian work to begin with a dream is we come from the subjective. And the subjective meaning that all the characters in your dream would be parts of your own self. So if you have a dream about your mother or your girlfriend or somebody, even somebody you haven't seen, an old friend from when you were very young, you would then say to yourself, okay, why is this person in my dream? And perhaps I might dialogue with this person and say, why are you here? And what is the message for me here? What are you saying to me? And you might actually imagine that and write it down and begin a dialogue through writing with this being. So sometimes, most often, 90% of the time, Jung called this the compensation dream. So your conscious mind is trying to balance and with the unconscious, and so the unconscious is bringing you information. And because it doesn't have regular language, it would come in. It can come as a symbol. It can come as a voice. It can come as not always a symbol. It's an image or a personality.
So as you said that they are always, as you just said that they are mostly like compensatory. So let's say if in a conscious life, I'm being very humble. I say that I'm a very humble person. Like I have adapted my ego to that specific word, being humble. Then in the dream might be something I am being very proud of. So would that dream be a kind of a complementary dream? So do you think that dreams always work in like compensatory ways, or they can be anything else than that?
Thank you. Yes, mostly Jung thought they were compensation. What you're saying is that if you're too humble, it might come in and say, wow, you need to be a little more proud. Or if you're too inflated, too proud, then it may bring you down a notch, right? It may, it's always, that's 90%. But there are other kinds of dreams. There are dreams, they're very rare. There are dreams called, which are prophetic dreams, which point forward to the future. But that is so rare. And usually those dreams are very specific. They're not what you think. Because most of the dreams are metaphor. They're metaphor. Might play with words, with sound, but there's still going to not be specific. For an example, a symbol might be you're going up and down an escalator. So the going down is going deeper into the self. The coming up is coming up to a higher perspective. The same with ladders or things like that. Pathways are, interesting. So there are certain things that are collective that we all share, like people dream about an ocean, for instance. That's the same. That's a collective image. Okay, so going back, let me, what your question again, more specifically, the other dreams is, oh yes, prophetic.
Yep.
So that's very rare, but they're very specific. Like every detail in the room would be very concrete and specific. And when you wake up, that dream will be exact, if that makes sense. But I could give an example.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that.
So there was one woman I was working with a long time ago, and she had a dream where her child and her husband were on their way somewhere. And on the way, the father went into a phone booth and was making a call, and the little girl got in the car and she took the brakes off and she went over a cliff. So she woke up and she was very frightened, and she said to her husband, okay, I know you're making this trip, but here's my dream and I'm very worried. And so he went a different way. He didn't go that way. And on the way back, he went back that way. And but he acknowledged her dream and respected it. And he took the hand of a little girl and he called his wife and he said, you know, you were exactly right. This dream was exactly the way you saw it. And I have her by the hand, but we came back that way. We didn't go that way. So in a sense, she saved their life. The dream was a warning.
So is it kind of like, does that happen to like hypersensitive people? Like I remember a dream or it was a dream that came to Jung when he was coming back after meeting Freud. I believe it was about World War I and all the bloodshed and something like that. And it happened even before the World War. So does that happen with the kind of a hypersensitive people, or it can be with anyone? And I mean, how does it happen? Like how a layman can understand that if something hasn't been happened yet and it comes in your dream.
Okay. Well, that particular, what you're speaking about, what happened to Jung in 1913, he was on a train, I believe, and it was a vision. It was a vision. And I think it happened twice, and it went on for an hour. And he was very, very frightened. He thought that he was going insane because, you know, Jung, you're absolutely right. Not everyone has that level of being able to go between the worlds that Jung had, but many people do, you know, and I think it can happen to anyone. But in Jung's case, it happened, and he thought he was having a schizophrenic psychotic break. And then he had it again for an hour, was very disturbed, and then World War I broke out. So that was a metaphor that he saw, because what he saw was blood. I think, wasn't that right?
Yep.
Yeah, he saw like the whole area like covered in blood. Now that was a metaphor. It was symbolic of what happened during World War I.
I see. So would that be a kind of a lucid dream?
That was a vision. He was awake.
So can we say that was because I believe, if I'm not wrong, does that happen same in lucid dreaming? Because we are awake and we are conscious that we are dreaming.
Yes, lucid dreaming is something a little different. Lucid dreaming is when you are asleep and dreaming, and then in the dream you realize you are dreaming. And what some people do with that, you know, there's a lot of people who practice this, is that they begin to try to move the dream in the direction they would like it to go. Now, that's a double-edged sword. Jung didn't necessarily, and my teacher, who was Marion Woodman, didn't recommend that to try to control the dream. And for the reason is that we control everything. The ego controls everything.
That's true.
And the dream, right? So the dream is something which we're not controlling. And so, you know, it is giving us information that if we can learn how to work with it and interpret it, then that's the key. Now, people do have spontaneous lucid dreams, though, and they can just happen. And, you know, that's a fascinating thing. It's not something I personally have.
So as you just said that, and you beautifully explained that, I would extend from there, like, as you said that we should not like kind of force the dreams. So as there's much of the ego involvement. So that's why Freud, I believe, was much more interested in free association method with the dreams, and even Jung, I believe. So
that's right.
Do you think that there is no particular or specific interpretation of dream, like no specific, we should be very open with the symbols and interpretation, or can there be any specific interpretation for dreams?
I don't believe there can be a specific interpretation. There are certainly techniques for inviting them, and there are certainly, like the archetypal school of thought, they don't do interpretation at all. So they would really literally inhabit the dream. Like you would go into what we were talking about, a dialogue with the dream figure. When, you know, the ego would be dialoguing with the dream figure to see what it is, what the message is. So that is one level. The other thing that we do is you might amplify it. Like, for instance, if you have a dream of a snake, you might look up, you might say, the first thing you would say in a dream is, how did you feel when you woke up? That's very important. Yeah, your emotional state. And then the second one is, okay, what are your associations with a snake? How do you feel about the snake? What have you, what encounters have you had in your life with a snake? So that's the personal unconscious. Then you might also want to do what they call an amplification, where you want to look up, not in a dream dictionary, because those are not recommended, but in something, a symbols book, and say, okay, throughout culture, throughout the world, what are the different, what does snake mean? In different, and so those are the two things, the association, the amplification, and the one in Jungian thought they would do interpretation. Now, to do interpretation, you have to be quite knowledgeable, as Jung was, with mythology and different cultures, because people will also often have huge collective dreams about a culture that they're not familiar with in their conscious lives, right? Which is very fascinating. That can happen. So, yeah.
That's true. So, so how do you think, like, what's your move on, or your perspective on the Greek mythology and how those symbols could have an impact on our dream life and even on our collective unconscious?
Well, you know, again, this is a cultural component. The Greek mythology is only one mythology, right? And it's certainly the Western mythology. But there are also, the Eastern mythologies are just as important, or Egyptian mythologies, or they could go back to, you know, any, you know, so it wouldn't necessarily be one. That's why when we approach a dream, we always approach with the idea of, I don't know. I know nothing. I don't know what this means. Both the dreamer and the person who is working with them, who is helping them to uncover the dream, we would approach it with, I don't know. And then from that place, we would circumambulate, because the dream is a hologram. So the meaning might be something that is very evasive, and you may not get to it for weeks or months or sometimes years. Like what Jung called a big dream, sometimes that's a life dream. It takes a whole life to understand it.
That's true. So, because I really like Joseph Campbell, he said that myths are public dreams and dreams are private myths. Because that's a really beautiful quote on dreams and myths.
Yeah, beautiful, yes.
Yeah, sometimes like the symbols, they're kind of very, as you said, that it really depends on the culture. So they become kind of like a collective symbols.
Yes, it can be collective, yes. And those big collective dreams are the ones that we remember all our lives. And they stay with us. Whereas the little dreams, like, okay, I don't know, would you like me to give you a little guideline of how to work with them?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I believe the listeners will be looking for. How do we play with our dreams?
Okay, so when you wake up, and I have struggled with this myself, it is very important to record your dreams, whether you do it by, I just write them. I have a book right next to my pillow, and I write the dreams. Now, when you wake up, you know, the first thing it is, you wake up and you have a thought and you jump out of bed and the dream's gone. A lot of people think they don't dream, but we do. We dream every night. So to invite the dream, before you go to sleep, you might invite what I call the dream messenger to bring the dream. And the reason for this is because I find that if I don't pay attention and work with my dreams, the dream messenger gives up on me. He goes away, she goes away and says, okay, I'll come back another time when I have something important. But you're not there, I'm not going to give them to you. So the dreams disappear. Now, if I write my dreams and I work with them and I pay attention to them, then the dream messenger comes more often and you get more dreams. So the way to do that is you give a suggestion before you go to sleep. There's other things you can do. You can take mugwort tea, things that are good for dreams like that. You know? And you would then invite the dream. And in the morning when you wake up, you would lie very, very, very still. And you would try to go over anything, an image, a symbol, a sound, a color. You know, even if you get one image, it's nothing. You write it down. You write it down, or else you record it. And then you work with it and you say, okay, what I got this color in my dream. I don't know what this color means. It's all I got. Well, maybe you might want to draw that color, or you might want to see what you associate. How do you feel with that color? You might want to bring that color into your house, into your room, in terms of a flower or something that day. So you're kind of working with it and letting it enter into you. And now, yes, sometimes you get a whole dream. You get a big, a complete dream, which is similar to a play. It's they called it the dramatic structure of the dream, where you would wake up and you have the whole thing. You have, you know, I'm in this place, I'm doing this thing. Then there's a crisis, and there's a rising action, as they say, and then things shift. And then the last part of the dream, the last line, is what they call the denouement, or the license, which points to the future. And my teacher, Marion Woodman, who was a Jungian analyst, used to say that last line of the dream is the most important, because it's telling you where the energy is trying to go. So the dream is trying to teach you, to take you towards something new.
That's true. Even I can relate, as you just said, that the last lines of the dream, they really tell you where you will be going, or where you should be going towards the life, a kind of a future thing. Because I recently had the dream, and if I relate the last line, so it resonates with what you said. So as you said that, like, it happens with me most of the times that I don't remember all the scenarios or all the details of dream, but what I remember, I just write them down. Because I remember, if I have like, I started recently writing the dreams, but I have more than 300 dreams written, but they're often missing some details. So do you think is that fine if someone doesn't remember all the details, but they can remember some of the details? So does the interpretation or have an impact with some details?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, you know what I always say to my clients? I say, we take what we can get. It's all a gift. So, I mean, you're getting, because it's a hologram, even if you get a piece of it, you know, it's enough. And also, most often dreams tend, when we're working through something unconsciously, we get themes, you know? And so you'll have a series of dreams around those themes as you're working through them. And so you don't necessarily need the whole dream. Anything that you get is helpful. So anything, that's why I said even a sound, because you're training yourself and you're inviting the unconscious at the same time to play with you. And really what we want to do with the dream is we want to play with the dreams.
I see. That's great. So just a quick question with this slide, like if someone is new with interpreting the dreams and they don't have much experience doing that, like if some of the figures appear in the dream, like as we discussed in the start, their father, mother, brother, or maybe wife or someone else, or maybe some animals. So should they take them as literal, or should they take in symbolic form? What would you say to them about this? Yeah,
I would take them, you know, symbolic forms. Like animal dreams are really, thank you for bringing that up. I wish, you know, we had a little more time. The animal dreams are really wonderful to actually do this engaging with the animal and actually even get inside the animal and act out the animal, like become the animal. And also to see what that feels like in your body. That's how my teacher Marion worked. Like, what is the energy of a tiger if you dream about it in your body, as opposed to a kitten? You know, it's a different energy.
Bringing about strength, power.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, you would want to, if you have an animal come to you, like I recently have a client who brought to me an amazing dream with a bear. And she's been over the last couple of months working with this bear and what it is and how it is behaving and what it means to her. And but one of the ways is, the other ways, as we were saying, is to dialogue with the bear. Invite the bear in writing and say, who are you? What is your message to me? And
so it kind of more represent or symbolizes the instinctual qualities within us.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So also like with the if our parents or siblings come in the dream, so they would be not them literally, but some aspect of me, like a fatherly aspect within me, motherly aspect within me, or if a friend whom I have never met, maybe in last 10 years, if he comes in the dream, that would be maybe a repressed part of me who's trying to expose maybe. So it's just like all those figures would be an aspect of me, right?
We would start with that. Sometimes they are objective. Sometimes they are. I mean, certainly I've had many people come, you know, when somebody dies, there is such a thing as a visitation dream, where the person has died and crossed over and they appear, and it has a different feeling to it. But usually we begin from a Jungian perspective with, let's talk about the subjective of the dream. Why is this person from 20 years ago coming in my dream now? What was my relationship with that person? And what is going on in my life right now that relates to that time in my life?
I think that's the very prime point, linking that what's going on in my life right now, as you just said that, because that's the most important thing, right?
Yes, yes. What is going on in my life right now? And what is the message of the dream? And how can I be working with it? And, you know, when we're dealing with a problem, when we're dealing with a problem, it might be a series of dreams that, you know, it's helping us, but it's definitely there to give us the other view, the perspective that the ego can't see. And it's helpful to have somebody to work with your dream. You know, even if you have a friend you can talk with regularly about your dreams.
Yeah, I think that helps. So like the very last question would be how dreams are gateway into personal unconscious and archetypal realms. I believe we have discussed quite a lot in that, but I would like if you could briefly tell like how the dreams are gateway into personal unconscious and archetypal realms, and how actually they move us towards personality growth or soul growth.
Yes, well, good question. Again, the personal unconscious would be the parts of ourself that we're working through that have to do, like you said, with our personal life, what's going on in our life right now. And the unconscious is helping to compensate, to give us information. The archetypal realms, like you're saying, that's the big collective dreams that Jung talked about as well. Those are the big dreams. So those are dreams that you'd never forget. Even if you don't write them down, you will always remember. And over the course of your life, it may make sense. It may take 10, 20, 30 years before the dream starts to understand, because it makes sense. But it will change you. What archetypal realm dreams come through, oftentimes completely change your perspective of yourself.
So like if someone dreams of his or her personal mother, right? So that would be kind of a personal unconscious. But if they want to tap deeper into the deeper layers of psyche, like the mother archetype, so that's going to be. So do you think that that's not very much common in the dreams, or for such dreams they need to consider the characteristics related to that particular archetype?
That's also an excellent question. I think it's good to work with both. When you're working with the dream, you want to say, okay, because the collective mother, definitely the archetypal mother is in us, all of us, right? Or the archetypal father, it's in us. So she might come through in the dream in a symbolic form or a symbolic representation as a personal mother. But behind the personal mother is the archetype. So is the archetype of the great mother. So you want to be working with both in your life. Like, how do I incorporate this, or how is this speaking to me?
Great. I have a very last and a quick question. So do you think that someone with a mother or a father complex, if dreams of them either of them, can actually heal themselves with the father or mother archetype, like tapping deep. Yes.
Yes, I absolutely do. I think that dreams are a spiral journey to back to self. And you brought up a question that could open a whole other conversation, and that is the idea of complexes. Because we all have complexes, you know, because our personal mother experience or personal father is attached to what you said, to the archetypal mother. So, but you know, in getting to know the complexes, it's not like they definitely go away. I mean, if I had a bad mother, I had an abusive mother, it's not going to, I have my complex then is a negative mother archetype, negative. So to look at the divine mother, to look at the archetype of the whole, we get to know, we get to have a relationship with the divine, with the archetypal mother.
So do you think that starts with acknowledging or tapping deeper with our emotions? Do that starts with it?
Yes, it's always the emotion. That's why when we wake up from a dream, the first question we ask ourselves, how did I feel when I woke up? Because that feeling is absolutely necessary for anything to transform.
Great. I believe that's the end of today's session, and I'm really thankful to you, Eva, for guiding us and enlightening us on the dreams and how they can lead us towards growth and deeper into the realms of psyche. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and for inviting me. And I hope that was helpful. And of course, we just tapped the surface. It's a multi-dimensional topic, but thank you, Abdul.
Definitely, it was helpful, and I will definitely catch you some other time if you will be free, and we'll get to know more on that. Thank you again.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.